face in the beginning. Your every thought.
Good morning, Mechanicsville. How you doing this morning? This is Don Curtis. Yes, this is a great day that God has made for you and for me. It's Friday morning, and God has been good to us and faithful to us Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And now it's Friday morning. And I tell you, I don't know about you, but I'm going to rejoice today and give God thanks. I'm so grateful and thankful to be alive today and be alive in Christ. Yes, good morning, Chevy Chase, Maryland. We have some new listeners in Jessup, Maryland. And so we want to welcome you to the Good Morning Mechanicsville show. Good morning to you. Good morning, Omaha, Nebraska, and San Jose, California. Yes, we give God thanks and praise to those who listen to us by way of WBRFM. Yes, and Wagon Barrow, England. We just give God thanks. And your next door neighbors as well, London, England. We thank God for you. Those in South Africa and Ethiopia, we give God thanks and praise for you this morning. Yes, this is Crazy Love, Marianne Rappe from out of South Africa. And we've been talking about this crazy love. We thank God for his crazy love for you and for me. He loved you so much, he gave up his best. Good morning to you. Good morning, Flagler Beach, Florida. Good morning to you, Orlando, Florida. Yes, Tallahassee, Florida. We just give God thanks and praise for you this morning. Yes. Horn Lake, Mississippi. Good morning to you. Yes, Norwood, Connecticut. Good morning to you. Annapolis, Maryland. Good morning to you. La Plata and Lexington Park, Maryland. Waldorf, Maryland. We thank God for those that listen to us throughout the great state of Maryland. Yes, good morning, Christ Church. We love you guys this morning.
To embrace us in the fellowship of your Son. Your dream come true of a being just like you. The romance in your heart, kissed by you from the very, very start.
Good morning to those in Cyprus that are listening to us this morning, and Republic of Korea, good morning to you. Yes, Nigeria, good morning to you. France and Germany. We give God thanks and praise for this technology. We can share this together with you and with those around the globe. Good morning, Australia.
Crazy love, why do you pursue me, knowing each hair on my head? Crazy love, you never have failed me, followed me to the grave. You followed me to the grave. Crazy love.
Yes, crazy love, crazy love. That's how Mary Ann described it, as crazy love. And we were together yesterday. We indicated that a number of persons had described God's love in so many different ways. In fact, his kind of life. They had found out that this Christian life, the reality of it, not this churchy life, not some denominational life, but the life of Christ, when they embraced him and all of who he was, they saw him in ways they had never seen him before. Just like we're reading in the Word of God itself, when Nicodemus fell up against him, when he saw him, when other persons interacted with him, we have been saying this for quite some time. He was very radical. He was off the hook. He didn't fit in anybody's theological construct. In fact, he was so far out of what they thought God was like that they thought he was demon-possessed. They thought he was crazy. They thought that there was something wrong with Jesus. In fact, they killed him because they didn't agree with him at all. I mean, can you imagine that God becomes flesh, that he comes into the flesh so that you and I, and particularly those at that time, could actually see what he was like? They could handle him. They could touch him. They could interact with him. But yet, because their notions and ideas about God was just so far different than the reality of who God is, that they sought to kill him. I mean, you've got to really be messed up in your mind to want to kill the very God that you say you worship and you're waiting for, and you are looking for him to deliver you and to set you free from your enemies all around you. You've got to have some far out wrong thoughts about God to have God actually show up to do what you have been asking him to do for ages, and you don't know him. In fact, he is so far removed from your thoughts that you're about ready to kill him. Well, that's what happened. That's what happened. That's what happened. And I dare say that that same thing would happen today as well. There's nothing new under the sun. And so the same thing happens, is that when you and I, if we aren't careful, we'll be expecting something totally different than who God really is. But Jesus, one of the blessedness that we have in the time in which we live in, is that we can look back and we can actually see Christ. We can understand what he was like and see God in the flesh, and not fall into that same terrible mistake that the Pharisees and the religious leaders of his time fell into. He is the express image of God. He is the faithful and true witness. He even gives testimony himself out of his own mouth that he had come to make his Father known. He had come to reveal the true nature of what God was all about. Because even though they were religiously inclined, even though their whole existence was centered on their relationship and understanding of who God was, their whole life was ordered by him, they didn't really know who he was when he showed up, when he became flesh, when he became visible. So they really could have an interaction with him. They were just dumbfounded. They were marveling by him. They were blown away. They were actually blown away. And it seems as if as time went on, the more Jesus spoke, the more he revealed the true nature of what God was like, the more they hated him, the more they set out to kill him. And, you know, it didn't take long. I mean, 3.5 years and it was over with. It didn't take them long at all. Their rage wild. It was like a wildfire. It didn't take time at all. It didn't take them long at all for it to get to a consuming pitch of being able to destroy him like that. But you know something? For those who have received him, for those who have embraced who he is, this life is just something spectacular. Jesus said, look, I've come that you might have life and you might have it more abundantly. And these persons saw his life in so many different ways. The exchange life. You remember we went over a little bit of these. We didn't get into any detail, but just mentioned the fact and the persons who was connecting with these experiences that they had, the cleansed life, the unchained life. You remember we mentioned John Bunyan talked about when he grew in his understanding of who Christ was, it became the unchained life. It was a life of absolute freedom that he had never experienced before. I mean, in order for you to experience Christ, the life of Christ, as the unchained life, it must have had a chained up life before. His experiences must have been chained up, must have been locked down, could only go so far. But after meeting Christ and after really receiving all of what Christ is, John Bunyan said, hey, I would label this the unchained life. Oswald Chambers, the highest life. I mean, we mentioned a little bit about that yesterday, the highest life. He said there can be no life higher than this life that Christ comes. And, you know, when you and I think about it, it's absolutely true. When you and I discover the fact that God made us in his image and his likeness, and then he provides for us the wherewithal so that we can live that kind of life, remember that real sin has nothing to do with activity. It really has to do with just falling short of the glory of God. In other words, God so fashion you in a certain way, and then you don't live up to it. I don't live up to it. I don't come close to it. In other words, God made you and made me in his image and his likeness, and anything about you and anything about me that's not God-like, that does not resemble him, does not manifest and show forth the glory of who he is, that's sin. That's falling short. It's missing the mark. It's getting 90, but it requires 100. And so even though 90 may look good to everybody all around you because they couldn't quite make 90, not everybody could make 90, but 90 still is not 100. And no matter how you look at it, no matter how good it might sound to you, no matter how good it might look to you, no matter how you might feel about getting a 90, it still misses the mark. It still falls short of the glory of God. God says 100. Jesus says, be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. In other words, you got to be just like God. You've got to be godly. You've got to be righteous. You've got to be just like him, because after all, he is your Father. He is your dad. You're born of his Spirit. That's what Jesus is saying. He said, look, be ye perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So nothing less than 100 will do. Anything short of that is sin. And so Oswald Chambers comes along. He says, this is the highest life, because once I'm able to hit that 100 in Christ, and once I receive all of what Jesus has for me, I'm discovering this kind of life, living at 100, it's the highest life possible. It's the highest life out there. And, just reasonable, just thinking about that. For you and for me to live as a child of God, to live as someone born of the Spirit of God, to live as someone who is an offspring of God, not an offspring of the devil, not just doing the best we can in our humanness, but really lifting our humanness to the level where it belongs at, where we see our humanness. When we remove all of the 90s and 95s and all the hidden and missing of the mark and see all of what it is, we begin to see, wait a minute, this is the best that anyone can get to. This is the highest life. We mentioned also that angels really are less than us. Paul, writing to the church, says, don't you know that you're going to judge angels? That angels have to submit to your judgment? He says, so these little earthly issues and things that you're squabbling about in your church meetings and whatnot, they're not worth you thinking about. Give them to the children. Give them to those that are least esteemed in the body. Let the children decide that, because you need to be getting yourself ready to be able to judge angels. And, of course, we're so far removed from that kind of thinking that we refer to sometimes the goodness that that we term to be good. When we get to that 90 instead of 100, when we get to that 90, we said just let the better angels in us take over. The better angels. What are you talking about, better angels? When angels are desiring to see what God has provided for us, when they see that what God has made out of you and out of me far greater than who they are, they marvel at that. They are astounded at the grace of God and the handiwork of God, and how God is able to take a man, take a woman, and fashion them and remold them, and, as Jesus would say, born them again, have a whole new birth, and they come out radiantly different and far above them. Yes, even Hebrews says, which of the angels that God says, look, behold, you are my beloved child? Well, none of them. He said, don't you know angels are servants of those who are heirs of life? But if you don't know any better, if I don't know any better, I begin to see angels are better than me, when it's really the other way around. No, you're better than angels. I'm better than angels, because God has made me and you in his image and his likeness. He didn't make any angels in his image, his likeness whatsoever. They're all his servants. You and I, we're to be his children. I think children have a higher esteem in the household than the servants do, than the maid does, than the butler does, than the gardener does. Yes, but see, that's why Miriam said, this is crazy love. Because I never thought like that, didn't see that. I never considered myself more than an angel. I thought angels were better off than what we were. But no, when truth comes in, when God said, no, you got it wrong. Somebody been lying to you, just like they got it wrong when Jesus showed up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they still got it wrong. We still have it wrong today until we begin to see what God is saying to us. Isn't that a tremendous thought for you and I to consider for the rest of this weekend and over the weekend? The fact that you're better than angels, that God has made you in his image, his likeness, for you to think about the fact that there's not an angel that exists nowhere that has been made in his image and his likeness. No, they're his servants. He tells them to go when they go. He tells them to come and they come. But God has made you and I such that we are higher than angels. God has made us in his image and his likeness. No angel has been made that way. He has made us to be heirs of his. No angels are heirs of God and joint heirs with his son, Jesus Christ. Angels cannot refer to God as Father. Angels can't look at God and say, look, I'm born of his spirit. No angel can claim the fatherhood of God. None at all. Even the archangels. Not even an archangel can look at God and see God as Father. But you can. But I can. But every person who sees God as Father, every person who knows that they are children of God, born of his spirit, I mean, that fact elevates you and I far above, as the Bible says, all powers and principalities, all dominions and powers will set us in places, in heavenly places in Christ, far above all the angels, even the archangels. Mm-hmm. That's a tremendous truth for us to meditate on and to think about. The highest life. Thank you, Oswald Chambers. The highest life. The highest life. He said this life is higher than in angelic life, because this is divine life. We have been made partakers of God's divine nature. No angel can claim that. Michael can't claim it. No. This is the kind of life that God has made available to you and to me. And I tell you what, the enemy will rob that from you if you don't know it. He will make sure you stay in ignorance. He'll make sure I stay in ignorance, because he doesn't want you and I to discover the fact that we have life that far exceeds his life. He's condemned and judged already. His hour is coming at some point. But God has made it possible for you and I to live this kind of life. Jesus, this is why I've come. I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Yes, an abundant life. And my attitude is that if Jesus has paid the ultimate price for me to have an abundant life, then I want it. And I'm discovering, as I'm sure you are as well, that this abundant life is not measured by material things that devalue, things that you can put a price tag on. It's more exciting. It's more valuable than a Rolls Royce. It's more valuable than any mansion. It's more valuable than gold. It's more valuable than any jewel. It's more valuable than that, because all those things, you can put a price tag on it. But the life that God has made available to you and to me is priceless. In other words, the more you and I can identify the priceless nature of the kind of life that God has given to you and to me, the closer we are to understanding this highest life, this life that God has made available to you and to me, and be aware of every single trick and every single way the enemy will come against us to impact and affect our thinking, so we'll never enjoy this life. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Yes. Priceless things like the peace of God. There are many people who would like to have peace today. They really would like to have a day when they don't have any worries, any concerns whatsoever. And not only that, just a peace, just a it's more than just tranquility. It's more than the absence of conflict, but it is a peace that passes all understanding. I mean, the very fact that you and I would have a difficult time explaining, trying to find the right words to describe this kind of peace is some of the evidence that we are experiencing that kind of peace when you really can't explain it. The peace of God that passes all understanding, that you really can't understand it enough to be able to explain it. All you know is that, my God, I'm living it. I'm right in the midst of it right now. And they say, well, what does that cost? Was there anything you had to do? Was there any performances that you had to complete? Was there 2 steps to get to that, or was it 3 steps? Or do you go through a 12-step or a 15-step kind of a program to get there? No. This piece, again, we're talking about this highest life that Oswald Chambers was mentioning. This piece is priceless. You can't put a price on it. You can't buy it. No matter how rich you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter how many cars you have, no matter how many mansions that you own, no matter who you know, no matter what names you can drop. None of that total together can come anywhere close to you being able to purchase, to buy this kind of peace, the peace of God that can rule and reign in your hearts, that can keep your heart so grounded and anchored that nothing can cause you to go astray. Nothing can cause you to throw in the towel, to give up. Nothing can cause you to commit suicide. And we live in a time when suicide rates are at its highest because all the conflict, all the pressures, all the stresses, all of the lack of peace. People are looking for it all over the place but can't find it, and think and come to that conclusion, well, if I just end it all, then maybe I'll have some peace. But this peace that God makes available to you and to me, you just can't find it anywhere. You can't buy it anywhere. This peace is the peace of God. It's God's peace that he gives to you and to me. You think God worrying about anything? You think he's he's worrying about this or worrying about that? Do you think he's stressed out at any point in time? I don't believe so. And he says, look, I want to give you my peace. And he says that to every one of his children. That's the way a father is. A father shares what he has with all of his children. Yes. Peace that passes all understanding. We're talking about priceless things you can't put a price tag on. Joy. Joy. Yes. You can't price it. You can't go and find that anywhere. These are things that make your life and my life in Christ an abundant life, the life that he is speaking about, the life that he has come to give to you and to me. It's joy unspeakable, and I like this, and it's full of glory. Full of what kind of glory? Well, full of the glory of God. Full of the glory that God has made you and molded you and me into. The image and likeness of God. It blows away all of the unhappiness. It blows away all of the drudgery of life. It blows it away, and it replaces it with a joy that's unspeakable. Not only is peace passing all understanding, you can't understand this peace, but this joy is unspeakable. You can't describe it. You're left speechless. You're left without words to really talk about this peace. Just like right now, I'm talking around the peace, but to actually explain it, to actually explain this joy, to actually give words to it, there's no words that can be found because it's unspeakable. It's unspeakable. It's unspeakable. It's priceless. The only thing I can say is that money can't buy it, no matter how rich you are. Your money don't count. Your possessions don't count. No. And men are, we're giving up our lives trying to get as much money as we can, try to get all these temporal things together. But why are we so focused on that and we don't focus on the things that that are priceless. Jesus says, come and buy of me things that you don't need any money for. None at all, he said. Again, he talked to that woman, said, look, if you knew who I was, if you know the gift of God, you're asking me, I would give you living water. I'd give it to you. Yeah, I'd give it to you just as freely as I'm asking you to give me some of this water from Jacob's well to quench my thirst. He said, look, I'll just freely give you this living water that I have that bubbles up on the inside of me. Highest love, highest love, highest love. Yes, an overflowing life. An overflowing life. Yes, a life that overflows, that just washes away all of the drudgery of life, all the mundaneness of life. Yes, this is what Jesus has come to make available to you and to me. And I tell you, we are just considering some of the words that came out of his mouth. We're just considering some of what he said. You know, as he moved around, persons, they began to see him, and they saw that his life was so different than what their life was. And so they wanted to know what could they do so that they could work the works of God, so they could do what he was doing. They want to find out, how can we do what you do? How can we turn water into wine? And how can we heal the sick? How can we do what you do? How can we work the works of God? In other words, that they're seeing that, wait a minute, this guy, Jesus, is doing some things that none of the Pharisees could do, none of the religious leaders could do. In fact, nobody could do it. And they concluded this is God at work. This is God working through him. And they want to know, well, how can we do the things that you do? How can we work the works of God? And Jesus said to them, and we can find this again in John chapter 6, a fascinating book, the Bible itself. Fascinating when you and I look at it and read it and just let it speak for itself. It's a marvelous, fascinating book that Jesus said, look, this just testifies about me. And they said to him, how should we do, what shall we do to work, that we might work the works of God? How can we do what you're doing? And Jesus answered and said to them, this is the work of God, that you believe on him who he has sent. He said, you're missing the point again. You're thinking I have this special power to be able to do these things, and you have come to the conclusion that these are God's mighty works, and now you want to be able to do the same thing. And he says, look, this is really the work of God. I want you to look beyond this and see that God has a motive, God has a desire that goes far beyond the healing that you're seeing, goes far beyond the changing of water into wine that you see, goes far beyond all the things you're seeing with your natural eyes. There's something else beyond all this that is greater than all this. This is the work of God, that you believe on him who he has sent. Now, that's a powerful response that he gives, saying that, look, this is what God is really after. He wants you to believe in me. He wants you to believe who I really am. He wants to get you beyond where the woman at the well was, where you might know the gift of God and where you might know who I am. And when that happens, you'll understand the reality of what this life is really all about and what abundant life is like. This is the work of God. It also tells us just how strong, just how mighty the fight is against you and against me believing this, because it takes the almighty power of God himself to break you and break me free from the darkness and blindness that has engulfed our life in such a way that we really don't see God and really don't comprehend who he is. Even when he's right there with us, moving around with us, that we really can't see who he is. And he says this is the work of God, that he might break through and you might then believe on him who he has sent, that you can see that I am the anointed one, I am the Christ. I'm the one who have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Good morning, Mechanicsville.
The romance in your heart, kissed by you from the very, very start.
Crazy love.
Crazy love, why do you pursue me, knowing
What are you listening to today? Say, man, crazy love. What do you mean crazy love? Man, I tell you, it's crazy. Yeah. How God loves you and how he loves me. It's crazy. He knows all about you, knows all about me, and guess what? He still loves us, even after he knows everything.
Crazy love, why do you pursue me, knowing each hair on my
Why would he want to love you like that? What's this crazy love all about?
crazy love? You never have failed.
Well, I found that I've been made in his image, his likeness. He loves me because of who I am, because of what he has made me to be. Yeah, he sees something in me I don't see.
Though I run away, find myself in death's dark veil, you will find me.
Guess what I found? Peace and joy, contentment, satisfaction. Yes, I have. Because I found out God is crazy in love with me.
Face to face, in the beginning, your every thought reflecting your desire to embrace us in the fellowship of your Son. Your dream come true.
And don't forget to send us a note. Let us know the name of your town where you listen to us at. Yeah, you can send me an email at pastorcurtis@hotmail.com, and we'll give a shout out to your town as well. And don't forget to pray for your town. Give God thanks and praise for your next door neighbor, for those on your street, those that live in the same block, the same community that you're in. Yes, just give God thanks and praise for them. Yes.
Why do you pursue me, knowing each hair on my head? Crazy love.
Yes, good morning, Calvert County, Maryland, over on the eastern shore part of Maryland. We give God thanks and praise for you again as well this morning, Annapolis, Maryland. We can give God thanks. Yes, it's a great day.